Have you ever wondered if doing a marathon in the build up to your main marathon is a good idea, like a simulation event or quality extended training session? Well, I ran 6 marathons in 12 months and got some of my best results and some of my not so best results, as I'll get into. See, most of my clients have flat out lives, like I'm sure you do as well, and the probability of something derailing their A race is so high that having more marathons on the calendar might actually increase the likelihood of them running their dream race. I mean, I often recommend to runners to do a test race at the end of their base phase to not only gauge fitness, but also collect a lot of valuable data. But I mean, outside of the elites I work with and ultra runners, I've never actually really put marathons as part of the weekly training schedule. So I thought I'd try some self-experimentation and share with you my experiences so you can help decide if adding more marathons to your calendar could be the ticket to your next PR. To start with, you need to understand the plan that I set out with. Last year, I raced my best ever race with the Gold Coast Marathon 2024 in a time of 2:35. That's marathon number 1. I followed it up with a fairly average 2:41 at the Auckland Marathon 4 months later. It's marathon number 2. In those 4 months, I did some of my biggest training ever with the hope of leveling up my performance with higher training load, and it didn't really work. I struggled right on the edge of sickness and injury, the wrong side of that edge, and ultimately concluded that I was a bit overtrained from a combo of the big weeks and inadequate recovery from the Gold Coast Marathon. But then the weekend after, I did another marathon number 3. This time it was on my local trails in Rotorua in the Whakarewa Forest, and while my legs were obviously a bit cooked, especially with over 1,000 meters of elevation, I was surprised at how good I felt mentally and how hard I could push. And that planted the seed for the train less, race more, skip the taper theory. Maybe the combination of good fitness, low pressure racing, and hard training sessions the week before could be the ticket to more predictable performances. After those 2 back-to-back marathons, I rolled into a speed block, hoping to break my 5K PR without really recovering properly again, and that led to 2 months of rubbish training, and me needing to take 2 weeks completely off at the beginning of the year so I could start fresh. So there I was, beginning of 2025, and I decided to focus properly on a base phase once. 4 months of consistent base training, which would lead me into 2 marathons 3 weeks apart. And I'd use those marathons as the start of my race phase for the Gold Coast Marathon, which would be 9 weeks later. And throughout this whole period, I'd stick to what I call my baseline training load, which on a weekly basis or 7-day basis is 6 runs, 2 sessions, 1 long run of around 2 to 2.5 hours, probably like just under 30, just over 30K, around that 20-mile mark. And that would total around 8 to 9 hours per week or 7 days of total training, and around 110 to 120 kilometers, or what would that be, like 50, 60, 70 miles. So that's it. No fluff, no big banger weeks, just consistent load that I knew I could complete week after week. Now, I'm going to throw a pretty big disclaimer or caveat in here because for the majority of you, running 6 days a week at 120Ks or 8 hours is way outside your capacity. So yes, this is a very loose case study, but I believe my experiences and takeaways are still really helpful to all runners who are looking to progress in the marathon. So let's look at the results and see what we can take away. First up was the Christchurch Marathon, marathon number 4 at 2:37:55. It was a flat course, good conditions, as expected, coming straight from the base phase, and 1 5x5K workout. The weekend before, I faded over the last 10K, but nothing drastic. I was hitting 36 mid to 36 high for 10s, and then a 38 for that final 10K. But that was only within a few seconds of my second best ever marathon, so I was pretty happy. 3 weeks later was marathon number 5, my local road marathon, Rotorua. 2:38:54 on a more challenging course and way harder conditions. This ended up being probably one of my best ever marathons, to be honest, because although I was about 3.5 minutes slower, I was only 1 watt lower power-wise than what I ran when I ran 2:35 at Gold Coast last year. However, this came with extreme risk. I was so close to overtraining. I wasn't even sure if I'd get through the race based on how I felt with the week leading in. I didn't even run the day before, so I had to take a very aggressive recovery after that. Understandably, right? 2 marathons within 3 weeks, near my best. So after that initial 2-week recovery, I had 7 weeks until the Gold Coast Marathon. Marathon number 6, my A race. So training went fine. I layered in my typical marathon sessions and had every reason to believe that I was on for a similar result to last year. My pace, power, heart rate, lactate readings all lined up with 2024 across similar sessions. However, I ended up running 2:41 after 92% humidity day snuck up on me and I had to shut things down at around 26K. I've done a whole video on that, so I won't get into it now. But regardless of what I achieved there, it revealed something really interesting to me. Even if I had a great day, I wouldn't have really put out a better performance than last year, and probably not even a better performance than what I'd done 9 weeks beforehand in Rotorua Marathon number 5. Last year, I followed a traditional base, build, prep, race system, the same one you can follow using my modular training plans, which I'll link to in the description. So I did around 16 weeks of a threshold focused base phase, which led me to a 1-minute half marathon PR 12 weeks out from the main marathon. Then a full focused marathon specific phase with some above average weeks and a 2.5-minute PR at the Gold Coast Marathon 2:35. This year, obviously, I raced a whole bunch right at the end of my base phase without a taper, and it went okay. 3 weeks later, I generated what I think was pretty much one of my best runs. And then 9 weeks later, I had a pretty mid result due to the conditions, but best case, wouldn't have really been taking minutes off my time like I did last year. So from that, what does this mean for you? I think if you're trying to get better without blowing up your life or relying on one big event, the takeaway is this. Rather than trying to push the load to a maximum, you can keep a consistent training load, something you can do frequency, intensity, volume-wise, week in, week out, and you can get into really, really good shape. And you can skip the big taper, you can race more regularly, and it'll work to some degree. I mean, I ran within a margin of error of my best, but with that, I'm also 10 years deep. So I'm already near my limit. For those of you that are running, new to running big races, it's likely you'll get a lot more progression than me, thanks to the higher likelihood of you staying consistent due to the reduced weekly training load and not pushing up the risk profile. And then also you're going to gain a whole bunch more experience from completing more races. But then if you're chasing big breakthroughs, like trying to knock minutes off your PR, like I did last year, then you're most likely going to need that all-in approach with a full focus build up, base, and just hope that it all comes together on the day. Because when you're redlining life, like I know most of you are, there's a fair amount of luck involved, especially when it comes to the conditions that you get on the day, completely out of your control. If I had put all my eggs in the Gold Coast basket this year, it was likely I wasn't going to outrun my absolute atrocious ability to perform in even mildly warm conditions. So I would have ended up not reaching my potential on the day, regardless of training or how I showed up. It was just conditions based. So the way I see it, you've got 2 options. Focus heavily on staying consistent, race more often, leave out the major limit pushing peaks, and just learn a lot in the process. Or number 2, just go big, push hard, race once, aim for the ceiling, repeat once or twice a year. Both are great options. The key is knowing which one to pick and when. Trust me, you can't do both. You can't expect to hit several big race build-ups within a 12-month period. It's either race often, lower the load, aim for consistency, or go big, recover big. If you've ever suffered from hot or humid conditions like I did at the Gold Coast, it'd be worth checking out this video on how the Delta T could be your silent killer like it was for me. Thanks for sticking around for another video. Hope your training is going well, and I'll catch you on the next one. See ya.